people, hello. Not a very entertaining video today, but one that has to be made in my opinion. As you know, I was going to cover two figures that I've been asked to cover. Because of the situations in my life and what happens to those who cover these people, I'm taking it very careful, and I do not want to risk my foreign work over any of this. But what I will cover, what I will say, for those who want to do their own research, and for those who didn't know, back in the day there was an Epstein-like house uncovered in London. This place was called Elm Guest House in Barnes, London. A lot of people claimed high-profile figures in Parliament and elsewhere were abusing young boys in this house. It was disguised as kind of a gay brothel, but there was a lot more seediness going on. A victim known as Richard Kerr spoke out on the incident.
My name is Richard Kerr, and I'm 53, and I believe my first time being trafficked to England was on February of 1977.
Richard Kerr has suffered for over 30 years in silence, blocking out the horrors of his past at the hands of what he describes as very powerful people. As a teenager, he was introduced to the world of Westminster. He says he was trafficked from Northern Ireland and that this picture was taken by one of his abusers.
I was used as a boy toy. I was an object.
Richard's account of what happened to him as a boy links three locations. Dolphin Square, a luxury complex popular with MPs and civil servants. Kincora Boys' Home in Belfast, where boys were systematically abused. And Elm Guest House, a former gay brothel where young children are also said to have been molested.
They were men who had control and power over others.
They were politicians, you believe?
Some I do.
But it's here, at Elm Guest House in South London, that he says he faced his most violent experience. It was raided by police in 1982. Newspapers at the time said that at least 3 MPs were questioned. It's claimed the late Sir Cyril Smith was a visitor. It was being used as a gay brothel, and it was alleged children as young as 10 were abused. It's the first time Richard's been back, and the flashbacks come fast.
I was tied up here. I do remember that. I don't know why I was tied up, but I was tied up. With my hands behind my back. I do remember that. Laying down, and they took photographs. Other men were here. Other men came into the room. It just wasn't this one man. There were other men here.
In the 80s, it was reported officers found whips, chains and ropes.
I don't mean to be this way. It happened. You know, I just don't mean to be. It's just holding on to all this sometimes. And I can't believe this happened.
The Elm Guest House was a hotel in Rocks Lane near Barnes Common in southwest London. In a list produced by a quote-unquote convicted fraudster, several prominent British men were alleged to have engaged in sexual abuse and child grooming at the guest house in the late 1970s and early 1980s. In 2014 and 2015, allegations against several leading politicians and others of the period, mostly now deceased, were made public in the British press. Many of these claims were examined in Panorama on the BBC. There were 2 operations around this guest house that the police produced. Operation Fairbank in late 2012 and Operation Fernbridge in February 2013. Funny enough, no evidence of abuse connected to the Elm Guest House was uncovered. What a shock. I'm sure Richard Kerr would disagree. The operation was closed in March 2015, and another operation, Operation Midland, was set up to examine claims of possible murders. a subsequent inquiry found that those investigated by Operation Midland had been victims of false allegations. Wouldn't you know it? So people were abused, people have given accounts. There's been 2 arrests at the guest house, but nothing happened there. Nothing happened there at all. Don't look into it, nothing happened. 2 arrests of people who weren't high profile figures. Are all the victims who claim high profile figures abuse them lying? What are these 2 arrests for if nothing happened?
Now, 2 men, aged 66 and 70, have been arrested over allegations of child abuse in southwest London during the 1980s. One is a former worker at a boys' home which was run by Richmond Council in Surrey. The other, a Catholic priest. Operation Fernbridge is looking at claims that senior political figures and others sexually abused boys at the nearby Elm Guest House in Barnes.
They were told that the raid involved a case to do with the grooming of boys and girls. Number 2, they were warned that high-profile people could be inside the guest house. I'm a reporter with Channel 4 News.
I thought so.
Can you tell me, just very quickly, it's just a few questions I want to ask you about Elm Guest House.
Listen, I've already been in touch with PCC. I don't want you to contact me again, and I'm going to report to you. Okay? Thank you very much.
Were you aware of what was happening in the guest house? A newsletter that connects Elm Guest House with the Conservative Party. It's from the Conservative Group for Homosexual Equality, a campaign group at the time which included some influential MPs. It was published 2 months before the raid. A section of it reads,
I am glad to publicise another establishment strongly recommended by members, Elm Guest House in Barnes, London. The facilities include a sauna, solarium and a video studio.
Rumours of big-name guests here went viral. An online conspiracy theory cottage industry was born, much of it spurious. But then, a few weeks ago, some of which had been just the preserve of conspiracy theorists, became a full, formal police investigation. Today, police from Operation Fernbridge made 2 arrests. Channel 4 News has been given these photographs of one of the arrests in progress this morning. This is John Stingemore, a former deputy manager at a care home near the guest house in southwest London at the time. The police are examining files from the London Borough of Richmond, which was responsible for the care homes in question. Today, they said,
We're offering our full support and cooperation to the police. As the investigation is ongoing, it would be inappropriate to comment further.
The other man arrested at his home in Norwich is understood to be a Catholic priest, Father Tony McSweeney, who was once a chaplain to Norwich Football Club. In terms of the numbers of victims interviewed by police, this is no Jimmy Savile scandal Mark II. In terms of the reverberations, though, it could be.
Look the other way, people. Nothing happened here. Nothing to see here. Move on. It's all a bit bogus. Now, I'm being very careful of what I say due to the high-profile figures involved. This is no joke here. I'm not going to name anyone. But you guys can search it up yourself and find out yourself. I'm here to spread the message about the house. So they apologise to the quote-unquote innocent parties involved. Those being those accused. Now, was everyone accused actually there? I don't know. But where there's smoke, there's fire. We've learnt this before. Many times throughout history. The person who gave the list of people involved was charged with perverting the course of justice and fraud, which he denied. But funny enough, wouldn't you know it, he was found guilty and sentenced to 18 years in jail. You see why I'm being very careful with what I say here. I'm merely documenting evidence you can find on the internet and elsewhere. No names, no accusations. I have to make this very, very clear. Now, the Elm Guest House itself had 8 guest rooms. Its facilities included a sauna, solarium, and a video studio. It was an Edwardian house, which is 1901 to 1910 era in England, you know, King Edward. It has now been converted into 2-bedroom apartments, and the current occupants are not connected to the allegations. In the 1970s, Elm Guest House owners Haroon and Carol Cassia allowed male prostitutes to take their clients into the establishment, but nothing happened here. Look the other way, nothing happened. But they were found to have male prostitutes take their clients in. Sounds similar to the things proposed by the parties? Now, an actual party was raided by the police in 1982 and the Cassiers were charged with running a disorderly house, but nothing happened, nothing to see here, guys. They were just charged with running a disorderly house and there were prostitutes there, but nothing happened in the house. You see where this does not make sense. Yet again, the public are idiots. The identities of the men who attended the party are not known and have been the subject of much speculation in subsequent years. By 2012, the Independent newspaper described the house as a conspiracy theorist's dream. Now, conspiracy theory, where does that originate? From the CIA, once JFK was assassinated by the CIA. Oh, did I say that? Pardon me. And now, they made up the term conspiracy theorist so you didn't question the narrative. It's since come out that JFK was definitely killed by the CIA. Let's not kid around. Carol Cassier died in 1990 at the age of 47 over a suicide using an overdose of insulin. That's the first I've ever heard of. I've never heard of suicide by insulin. But hey ho. Now, obviously the claims were challenged and discredited. But stuff happened here. But they say nothing happened here, but they've made charges. And there's history of charges regarding the house, but nothing happened here. Look into this stuff, guys. I've got to be very careful what I say. But I wanted to make this video nonetheless, so you guys can look for yourself. Let me know what you think.